Okay, let's jump right in. There's this real puzzle in the world of work, especially the high-paying, high-status jobs.
Hmm.
We see women making real strides, entering fields like tech, finance, engineering, these traditionally male domains. Great news for diversity, obviously.
Absolutely, a big step forward.
But here's the catch. They're also leaving these fields much more often than men are, way more often.
Right. And that's a huge problem if you're trying to build, lasting equality. It's like a leaky pipeline.
Exactly, a leaky pipeline.
Mm.
So the big question for us today is, why? What's pushing them out?
Yeah, and it really boils down to retention, doesn't it? Not just getting women in, but keeping them there.
Uh-huh.
So we're looking at this really interesting study. It was published in Social Forces from Oxford Academic.
Okay.
And the researchers, Professor Ming Leung and his team, they zoomed in on one specific thing.
Yeah.
Rejection, the psychological impact of being turned down for a job.
Rejection. Okay, so they wanted to see if how we handle rejection, maybe, differs by gender, using actual behavior, not just surveys.
Precisely. They wanted to get past the anecdotes. And you're right, that's super hard to track in a normal office job.
Almost impossible, I think.
Which is why they turned to the gig economy. This study uses a massive data set, 8 years of data from Upwork.
Ah, the big freelancing platform.
The biggest, yeah. And it gave them this incredible view into what freelancers do, what jobs they apply for, whether they get hired or rejected.
And crucially, what they do next, after the rejection.
Exactly. That's the key. Do they try again? Do they switch fields? Do they just stop applying in that area? It's a rare look at how people adjust their strategy in real time based on success or failure.
So they could really track those patterns. Application, rejection, reapplication over a long time.
8 years. It let them see if rejection led to, like, a small adjustment or a total withdrawal from a certain type of work.
Okay, so they've got this mountain of data, specifically looking at those male-type job, programming, data science, that sort of thing. What was the big surprise?
Well, first, something not so surprising. Rejection stings, right, for everyone. So both men and women were way less likely to reapply to the exact same employer who just rejected them. Makes sense. Don't waste your time.
Right, self-preservation almost. But the difference came later.
That's it. The real divergence, the gender difference, showed up in what they did after that initial rejection across the rest of the platform.
Okay.
So get this. When a woman was rejected for a job in a male-typed field, like programming, she became significantly less likely to apply to any other job in that same field.
Wow. Not just avoiding that one employer, but avoiding the whole category of work.
Exactly. That single rejection seemed to have this broader, chilling effect on her applications within that specific industry.
That suggests a really different way of interpreting the rejection, doesn't it? It's not just, oh, that client didn't pick me.
It seems so. The researchers suggest that for women, especially in fields where they're already a minority, the rejection isn't just processed as, this employer has an issue with my specific application. It morphs into something bigger. More like, maybe this whole domain. Maybe I don't actually belong here.
Like it confirms a pre-existing doubt or a stereotype threat they might already be feeling?
That seems to be the interpretation, yes. It feels less like a specific no and more like a signal about the entire field. Maybe this space isn't for people like me.
That's a heavy burden. If you're already navigating being the exception, a rejection can feel like proof the environment itself is the problem, not just one bad interaction.
You carry a higher burden of proof of belonging, as you put it, and the study seems to capture the behavioral fallout from that. A guy gets rejected, maybe he thinks, bad luck next.
Right.
A woman, same rejection, same field, might interpret it as, see, this field is harder for me, maybe I should try something else.
But we need to be careful here. If it was just about, say, resilience or confidence overall, you'd expect to see this everywhere, right? In all types of jobs.
Good point. And that's exactly what they checked. This pattern, this domain abandonment after rejection, it only showed up clearly in the male-typed fields.
Ah, okay. So not in fields typically dominated by women.
Correct. In female-typed domains like writing or translation, when women were rejected, their application behavior looked just like the men's. They kept applying within that field, no problem.
So it's not an inherent difference in reaction to failure. It's tied specifically to the context of the field. The maleness of the domain seems to trigger this specific withdrawal response in women after rejection.
It really reinforces that idea of belonging. The rejection hits differently depending on whether you already feel like you fit in that space.
Okay, so women get rejected in male-typed fields. They pull back from applying to similar jobs. The immediate thought might be, okay, They're just quitting freelancing. They got discouraged. Did the data show that?
No, and this is maybe the most fascinating part. They absolutely were not quitting freelancing. They were still driven, still working, but instead of quitting, they reoriented, they switched focus.
So moving their efforts elsewhere on the platform.
Exactly. If they got rejected from, say, coding jobs, they became less likely to apply for more coding jobs, but they became more likely to apply for jobs in completely different categories.
Like shifting towards.
Often, yeah, gravitating towards those more female-type fields we mentioned earlier. Writing, admin support, translation. Fields where maybe the perceived barriers or the social cost of failure felt lower.
That changes everything. It's not about a lack of drive or talent. They're staying in the game, they're hustling.
Yeah.
But that one rejection in the male-typed field was enough to make them redirect their energy entirely out of that industry.
It's powerful evidence, isn't it? It suggests the problem isn't ambition, it's the friction they experience within certain domains. They strategically move to areas that feel more welcoming or less likely to trigger that feeling of not belonging.
So if it's about the feedback, the rejection itself, and how it's interpreted, then the focus has to shift to solutions, right? How can platforms, or really any employer, change this, stop this domain abandonment?
Well, according to Professor Leung in the study, it really comes down to feedback. How is that rejection communicated?
Okay.
They argue that employers and managers, they have the ability to alter this. The key difference is whether the rejection is just vague or worse, feels personal, versus being clear, factual, maybe even a bit detailed.
Can you give an example? Like, what's the difference between a generic rejection and something more helpful?
Think about the standard email. Thanks for applying. We've decided to move forward with other candidates.
Yeah.
Vague, right?
Totally standard.
Yeah.
Impersonal.
Right. And in this specific context, a woman applying in a male-dominated field, that vagueness leaves room for interpretation. The internal narrative can easily become, they didn't give a reason, so it must be because I don't fit in, or my skills just aren't cut out for this industry. It reinforces the negative feelings.
It fills the vacuum with self-doubt or suspicion.
Exactly. But what if the feedback, even in rejection, was more specific? Imagine getting, your portfolio was strong, but for this particular project, the client needed specific experience with X software, which wasn't listed on your profile.
Okay. That's totally different.
It shifts the reason for rejection from something internal and fundamental, I don't belong, to something external and specific. I didn't have that one skill for this job.
It makes it about a skill gap for that role or a scope mismatch, not about your overall competence or right to be in that field.
Precisely. The goal isn't necessarily about changing who gets hired. It's about communicating the why in a way that, as the source says, helps make sure that women realize that their qualifications are just as good.
You give them concrete reason, something they can potentially address, rather than letting them default to assuming it's about bias or fundamental inadequacy.
Yes. Detailed, justified feedback makes the rejection less about the domain and more about the specific instance. It allows the person to think, okay, wasn't a fit for that, but I'm still qualified for this field. Let me find the next opportunity. It stops the retreat.
Which leads us back to that core argument. The focus needs to shift. We've gotten better at helping women enter these fields.
Right, the recruitment part.
But the real challenge now is helping them stay. It's retention.
That's Leung's point. Fix the back end of the pipeline. And the amazing thing is, it might not require huge structural changes initially, just better communication. Platforms, managers, HR departments, they can lessen the psychological blow of rejection just by being more transparent with feedback, even if the hiring decision remains the same. It's about managing the message to retain talent in the domain, not just filling one job.
It's striking how something seemingly small, like the wording of a rejection, can have such a big impact on career paths. This deep dive really shows how our response to rejection isn't universal, it's gendered, especially in these high-status male-type fields. Vague feedback isn't neutral. It can actively push talented women to redirect their entire careers.
And that leaves us with a pretty significant thought to chew on, doesn't it? If this is happening so clearly in the gig economy, where feedback can sometimes be tracked, what about traditional workplaces? Think about corporate jobs, academia, finance.
Where rejection from interviews for promotions is often completely silent, or just boilerplate HR speak.
Exactly. If that silent or vague rejection also carries this hidden gendered cost, pushing women to subtly redirect their ambitions away from certain departments or leadership tracks, What's the cumulative impact? What's the real unseen cost of silent rejection in shaping who reaches the top in our traditional organizations? Makes you wonder, doesn't it?